Hello， 大家好，跟着大师学水彩。今天我要跟大家分享的是，跟着约瑟夫的讲解，一步一步地完成一幅雨中街景。
I thought being wet in Melbourne, I actually do something iconic like a wet Melbourne street scene. The photograph in itself it's quite nice. It's showing us the wet day and all that, but the spacing of the cars is not very nice. It's not telling much of a story except it's a wet day in Melbourne. What I want to tell is an intersection. It's a rainy day, people are scurrying across and there's traffic and it's evening peak hour, let's say. First thing, I feel that's very flat and it needs a lead in, so a few more lines like that. I think a little tram there to really make it Melbourne would be good. And I'll have a bigger car probably about here somewhere. So highlights first. This tree is too big, so I'll probably eliminate some of that and not have it come in so far. So this is truly very, very rough, and I'll end up probably hardly looking at this, and we'll have some taillights in there. There we are. I usually start with the biggest shapes first, which are, in any landscape, the two biggest shapes are sky and earth. So a horizon line, as people tend to call it. And I'll say, you know, we'll have it a little bit below half. So that's for our road is going to be below here and the building's up there. So here's a tram and the little antenna which goes up. The rest of it, oddly enough, is not that important, apart from the two lights, which are fairly crucial. The first thing I'm going to do is wash in a large, very pale wash for the sky. I may have some clouds, but I don't think so. And then I'll wash in the surface of the road itself. Students tend to make skies too dark and their watercolors lose light. They lose that translucent, beautiful light quality that is watercolor. Some people even say sky is the eyes of the portrait of a painting in landscape painting, because the sky is what gives the painting quality. So here comes the wash, and as I say, I start at the top and I just simply go over the top quite a bit to make sure that it's very wet. It looks a bit too dark, so I'll put a bit of water in. So every time I go in to mix a wash, I add just a little bit more colour. So it's just a fraction darker. And that's it. We travel down. So there we are. We've come down to about close to these cars and buildings. We're somewhere in here. So it's now time to start looking after highlights and so on. And I want to introduce you to Mr. Bead. This thing here. I call him Mr. Bead. This welt of colour is your locomotive in your watercolour. That's what takes the paint down. You can see it running as soon as you break past it.
是的，水彩初学者往往很担心水渍。约瑟夫向我们演示了，只要水珠还在，就可以一直向下做渲染。这种方法也叫做湿碰干，诀窍是水多颜料多，水珠在的地方就是安全的地方。
Grey is made of many colours. Mix your greys by using all your three primaries, reds, yellows and blues, and you'll end up with a nice gradual wash like that. These are directional lines to lead us into the painting eventually. You should never put your brush to the paper unless you are almost dead certain in what you're using, how you're going to use it, what it is going to be, and see it in your mind's eye. If you're just blindly going and see what happens, it'll be just happy accidents. And that's okay for, you know, abstracts and things. But a realistic painting like this, you've really got to concentrate and say, look at that for a second. So you'll find that I often fiddle with pigment here and do all sorts of things. I seem to be doing nothing, but I'm actually doing probably the most important part of this painting, and that is I am trying to see it in my mind's eye. I do what I call a test. I just make a mark and I say, is that too dark? Is it too light? It looks about right. It can quite often look as if it is too light when it's not. And I start with this little bits, air coolers, aerials, whatever. I'm going to re-wet that. There's a few bigger droplets. I've just given it more life. So it's wetter, so it'll last longer. Clean water and soften this so we get this lovely misty look going back. This remains alive, this line. As long as that bead is there, it's alive, so I can keep going down. Once that dries, it's the end. So that tone alone is bringing that forward. We've got a weak tone there, stronger, stronger, stronger still.
Okay.
It's an ergonomic way of doing it. There it goes.
检讨一下，由于我水分控制的不均匀，这栋楼上下部分已经干了，而中间比较湿，造成从中间向上下两个方向回水。这里的边界也没能融入背景，原因是调色盘上没有准备充足的颜料，画到下面时笔刷上水分不够充足。
As this tightens up, as it is indeed, it's starting to slowly, settle and dry and so on. You really need to start looking at the shapes a little bit more carefully. So if you leave this funny little thing here and it dries, it'll come to haunt you. So, and the car has to be cut. A few bits of architectural detail, but some of that I'll dry brush in later. And this is quite nice, it's painted itself. And the more you can do that when you paint watercolor, the better off you will be. And another thing that I'm fond of doing is scratching things out with my nails. I'm not scared of touching my watercolors with my hands. Fingers are great for lifting off just a bit of paint, not too much. So I'm quite happy doing these sort of things. I'll scratch a little highlight there, put that in front, and I think make this wall a bit lighter. So this will have my DNA on it and fingerprints, so no one can forge this.
They can't mistake it.
Yeah, and just the last kiss of life as it's drying to see what it does. And I now need to start moving into my trams and cars before this dries completely. If you trust your watercolor and if you just trust yourself and say, what destroys paintings is not technique, it's lack of confidence, lack of belief, faith. That's what ruins it. If you don't believe that it's going to work, you'll never convince the viewer that it will work. A little bit of colour into this, just there. It's got a bit of a hump on there. Fine adjustment. This is a bit high. There. Better. Time to do this last car here. That's the back of it. This one is driving up the street. The dark under the car, the shadow, is more important than the wheels or headlights on a car. That's what anchors it to the ground. There's some mirrors sticking up. I'd like to put in the taillights and make them run into there. So we've got this bright, beautiful, bright cadmium orange.
Amazing.
which is doing it. Now I'm going to do the same with the headlights, and I use it straight out of the tube, nice and thick, and put it on again while this is still quite moist, so it melts in. Now I'm going to really have to go for it. I'm going to just give it yet another kiss of life. It won't hurt. Never hurts. It always looks good. There. Beautiful. Too much paint on a brush. There is a tree growing on this side. It is a fantastic way of connecting this shape and draping it in front of this one. And it's just a lovely way of making kind of like a tunnel to look through. We simply do this. That's not dark enough. It's just a sable, squirrel brush, soft, but not so big. I need to get a bit of control. The other thing I do is I actually punish it by going like that. So it goes into this shocking thing like that, and you push it forward, and that should give us our tree leaves. And again, vary your brush marks so they don't look the same. A few branches again, and this paint is lovely and thick. I'll do quite a bit of rigger work now. Here's a little highlight, and I will change that into a light, like so. I sell some work in America, and they always find these wires a little bit strange, but Melburnians readily accept these wires running through the sky for the trams. But to me, they are just simply connecting and directional lines. They're just terrific for directing your eye through the picture. Time for this wonderful cadmium red mixed in with the cadmium orange. But I actually will use them straight out of the tube.
Oh, I see what's happening.
And then this is pre-wetting the paper, so it gives pigment room to run.
Yes.
Not everywhere, but enough to give it space. And we'll get it really wet.
Yeah.
It has to be about as wet as you can get it. And I'll choose a reflection colour which will be, I think, a little bit warmer. And it either works or it doesn't. But as you can see, this time my adage of things painting themselves is dead true. You have to just let it do what it wants to do. You can see that this is now starting to work as a wet road.
Yeah.
I think that's about it. I can just angle this a little bit, and I will sneak in some little figures here. I'll give him a little umbrella. So, and I'll just lift this off. Well, there we are. This is now finished.
好啦，谢谢观看，下次再见喽。